Nih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom shalom. My name is Andhika and I am from SMA Negeri 81 Jakarta. And I am here to argue in favor of the motion that virginity should be a priority. Now, this might sound as a very conservative, outdated, backwards way of thinking. But if you look at the facts, then you can see that virginity, which means maintaining having no sexual activity until marriage, is actually a very practical and very respectful way to handle yourself. Now, there are multiple cultural and religious traditions that must be preserved. That put priorities on virginity. So, one of the examples is that in the Quran, there's the surah which is Al-Isra, and in the ayah 32, they say that extramarital sex is evil in a way and it's immoral. So why should we care about these religions? Why should we care about these religious traditions? Now, most of the people might think like, I might not believe in these traditions, but it's still very important to maintain them because secularism and liberalism that try to devalue the value of religions are associated with the conquest of Western society. And so if we want to preserve indigenous ways of thinking, we need to preserve their ways of thinking, their mindsets, such as prioritizing virginity. Now, you might not be invested in that, and you might say, oh, if people are forced by force to abide by these traditions, it might cause them trauma and lots of headache. But it is proven by a number of studies have looked at the regret that people face from doing the opposite, which is having many hookups, having many sexual partners. That creates a lot of regret and mental distress. In a large web-based study of 1,468 students, of undergraduate students, after they had extramarital sex, 27.1% felt embarrassed, 24.7% report emotional difficulties, 20.8% report feelings of less respect to themselves, and 10% report difficulties with finding a steady partner, which is finding a steady partner is a definitive way to put yourself in the right path for a stable adulthood. And people might say that sex gives people joy, gives people happiness, but it's been proven by a study made by Owen et al. In 2011 that people who used to have not many depressive symptoms and depressive thinking develop it after having many sexual partners. This might happen because they feel less of an attachment to their sexual partners. But when you're married to your sexual partner, you are having that emotional connection first. So the act of sex is very personal and as a way to communicate your love instead of just being mindless indulgence. And the people who try to keep virginity as a low priority don't apply it to all genders. Like in the countries such as America, where they put virginity as a low standard, it's actually lower for men. Like men are more allowed to not be virgins than women, even in these so-called progressive countries. While my argument is that virginity should apply to everyone equally. And when in countries where virginity is less of a priority, women are still shamed for not being virgins. They're called used or sluts, while the men are called chads or players, playboys. It's still this underlying current of sexism, but it's still a spit in the face of the rights of women because you're giving men the right to do immoral things while women are not. Even though it is still immoral, there's still that imbalance. While I propose that everyone should stay virgins before they get married. So after all of the arguments I provided and all of the data, we can conclude that virginity should still be a priority and should still be expanded to the countries where it is not a priority, because it protects the indigenous cultures and religions that are currently vulnerable to secularization. And second, it prevents people from heartbreak. And thirdly, it is a way to keep yourself a steady life. Also, I want to bring in another point, which is that even though people say that birth control and condoms might prevent the bad things such as STDs and unwanted pregnancies, there's still 99%, there's still the 1% chance that it might not work. And in the case of STDs, stuff like herpes and skin-to-skin contact sexually transmitted diseases still happen while you're wearing a condom, which makes the whole condom argument fall apart. And you might have a sexual partner who isn't a very nice person, so they might take off the condom right in the middle of sex, and that will cause lots of emotional distress. You don't want to put yourself in a vulnerable position. You don't want to put yourself in that kind of vulnerable position. So marriage is a way of vetting these sexual partners. After all those reasons that I've provided before, we can all conclude that that virginity should be maintained as a priority in our societies. Thank you for listening. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and stay safe, everyone.